What's going on, guys? Hope we're all okay. Well, the World Cup has officially started. The first two games have been played already. Mexico winning the opener against South Africa, and then South Korea beating the Czech Republic in the early hours of this morning. England's game, first game for Thomas Tuchel's side, next Wednesday against Croatia. So I thought maybe now's the best time to get my predicted start 11 for next Wednesday locked in. And thanks to FOTMob, we have got a little lineup section. Can I change the formation here? What we're saying? I hope we can, because I don't think he's going to play a 4-3-3. If not, then it's okay. Oh, we can. Here we go. I think this is the most likely formation that Tuchel will start with next Wednesday. I think he likes that two kind of holding midfielders with the one in behind Harry Kane. It kind of works if when Kane comes to drop deep, and that number 10 can then almost switch places or the same with the wingers. He really likes that. I think that's been really suited to England's style of play for a long time. Even under Gareth Southgate, we saw little shades of this formation. So why not kick it off? I think the obvious one in goal is Mr. Jordan Pickford, Mr. Reliable for England, really. Never tends to let us down. He's been the main goalkeeper for England for nearly a decade now under Gareth Southgate and now under Thomas Tuchel. He's just such a reliable player. He tends to turn up in the big games for club and country. I mean, he's been immense, really. If you ask any Everton fan, they'll say that he's probably one of their best players every single season. So I think, he's getting on a little bit. He's played a few major tournaments, which is a positive thing, negative thing with the age maybe, but I still don't think, even likes of James Trafford and Dean Henderson are coming along. We're both really good keepers. Trafford the younger of the three, but I think you'd be mad not to go with Pickford, especially with how he tends to play for England. So that's my goalkeeper. I think that I personally go with, and I think Tuchel will as well. Right back, maybe the first bit of controversy. Not for me, though, and I don't think it will be for a few others as well. I think Reece James, when he's fit, is the best, or at least one of the best right-backs in the world. I think he's very, very good at his attacking and defensive side, both really, really on top. I think your likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, your Livramentos. I mean, even Alexander-Arnold isn't even in the squad. And some people, they're a bit like, I'm not quite sure. I think that's a bad decision. I don't hate it. I think Reece James and Livramento, between them, can definitely cover the right-back spot. You just really hope that one of them doesn't get injured early on in the tournament, because that could then be a bit of a problem. But like I said, Reece James is always really solid. He's good going forward and defensively, which is something I think we've struggled from a right-back perspective. Alexander-Arnold, again, really good going forward, but a bit questionable when it comes to his defensive abilities. So I think, again, that's a pretty fairly solid, locked-in one. Anyway, the first of the centre-halves, I think, again, this isn't who I'd really go for, if I'm going to be honest. I really like Ezri Konsa. I think he's a really, really solid centre-half. I think he's been really reliable for Aston Villa for a few years now. And for England, he very rarely steps a foot wrong. However, I do think this partnership of Guehi and Stones is going to be something we're going to see throughout the World Cup. I think Tuchel really likes John Stones. Yes, he's a very good centre-half. He's a treble winner, multiple Premier League winner. He's got plenty of England caps under his belt. Injured a little bit recently this last year and a bit the year before, but undoubtedly a good centre-half. Personally, I think Konsa is still a really good centre-half. He will get plenty of game times. I think that's the positive. The likes of Maguire, who hasn't been picked again, which I think is really harsh, but we've still got quality of depth in the centre-half position. Stones, Konsa and Guehi, you'd like to think between the three of them will be able to rotate enough to carry on as we're going to the last stage of the tournament. Fingers crossed as well. Again, like I mentioned, the other centre-half then, I think, will be Mark Guehi of Manchester City. I think what a signing he's been for Manchester City. Obviously, he was really, really good for Crystal Palace, winning the FA Cup, the Community Shield, helping that Crystal Palace side, get into the Conference League, which they eventually won. But again, came in for Pep Guardiola in January and has really, really impressed. Stepped up right into the starting 11, and I don't think he's really missed a game for Man City. I think he obviously had that bit of a blip against Everton, which kind of cost the title, but kind of took them a bit more, took a foot out of the title race for City. But other than that, he hasn't really stepped a foot wrong for Manchester City. Off Crystal Palace earlier on this season, I think he's a really solid centre-half, one of the best central defenders we've had in a long time, I think. So complete, so assured on the ball for such a young player as well. I think he's a really, really solid centre-half that will be starting for years to come, hopefully as well. And then left-back, I think will be his fellow Manchester City teammate Nico O'Reilly, who was, again, really, really impressed in his first proper season in professional football. Had a few little glimpses of first team action in the season before the last, but this season he's been so solid at left-back. And he can play on the right-hand side of the defence. Well, you know, in case we need to go for James at some point, he can play in central midfield. He's so versatile. And someone like that is really valuable to a team, because if you need to adapt halfway through a game, if there's an injury, if there's, you know, coming up against a team and you think that you could use him in a different way, it's really, really positive. So to have someone like that is really, really good for this England side when there's going to be more games. There's going to be potentially playing a lot more better teams with our side of the bracket. I think having someone that can rotate a little bit is going to really, really help us if we want to get all the way and hopefully win it, which would be amazing, wouldn't it? But no, I think that back five is what we're going to go with. Like I said, Konsa for Stones would be my only thing, but I can't see Tuchel going against that back five. And again, I think the two central midfielders are fairly easy to point out. Elliot Anderson being the first one, I think he's just immense, isn't he? He's really, really, really solid. And he's taken to international football incredibly well. I think you see with quite a few players that play really well for their club, sometimes don't cut it in an international football. It's a different game. You're not playing with your camp week in, week out like you do for club. International football is different from a style point anyway. You can't play that level of intensity, very rarely carries through to major tournaments. But I think from what we've seen so far, Elliot Anderson and Declan Rice really, really play well together. I can't see there being any qualms with Elliot Anderson starting, who also might be a Man City player come next year. A bid of about 106 million has just gone in for Man City for Elliot Anderson, which is a bonkers amount of money for a player who only a year ago you wouldn't even say you'd take 40 million for. So that is kind of bonkers, but he's been incredible this season. So as this man here, Declan Rice, now a Premier League winner. Unfortunate not to be get a double this season with Arsenal after losing the Champions League final, but he's probably the best midfielder in the world right now, give or take maybe Vitinha or Bruno Fernandes, this season. But it's completely different roles, and I think for his position, I think he's the best number 6, as you would say, in the world. I think he's absolutely incredible. Going forward and defensively being his main priority, but going forward, he grabs himself a couple of goals every now and then, scored in the last one, the game against Costa Rica the other day. I just think he's so solid. You talk about England having good midfield over the years. You've got Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard. I think come his international retirement, if he can win himself something, he could be put in that category. He definitely could. I think he's got so much potential. He's worth so much already. He's such a valuable member. Again, I'd say, you look at the players in the tournament, like I said, one of the best in the world. He's going to be a game changer, certainly in that midfield, especially if we end up playing the likes of Portugal or the likes of France, where they've got some really good midfield players, Spain, with Pedri. You need your centre midfield to be solid, to be good, to know what they're doing. I think Anderson and Rice together really play very well, and they're going to be really important if we want to go into the last stages of this tournament. The man in the 10, again, I don't think there's many questions about this, is Jude Bellingham. Slightly less impressive season for Real Madrid last season. I don't think he was hitting the heights that maybe he feels he could. Again, injuries play a big part in that. Obviously, his first season for Madrid here, it was, take away the second half, the first half of his first year in Madrid was absolutely unbelievable. He is really one of the best midfielders in the world. I really quite like how he plays in this England, this kind of trio midfield here of Anderson, Rice and Bellingham. There's so much nice link-up play. Again, we saw against Costa Rica the other day. They just complement each other really, really well. And I think, your other players that you could play in that 10, you've got Eze, you've got Morgan Rogers, who are both really, really good options off the bench. You know what I mean? Like, this, I think, our attacking depth is so positive, and it's something that you need. We've always had attacking depth, but I've always questioned, is the attacking depth the correct depth? Have we sometimes put too many standout players in one position into a squad and try to fit them around. You think of the golden generation with Gerrard, Lampard and Scholes. They always tried to get fit into the same team, and Tuchel's gone against that this World Cup, which according to a few people a little bit angry at that, think that you should always take the best players, no matter how you can fit them into the squad, just fit them in. I disagree. I think Tuchel's done the right thing in terms of going with this squad harmony, understanding different players. You know, some players might not be at the same quality of their counterpart that's missed out, but in the system they work. And at the end of the day, we want to win a tournament, and we haven't done since 1966. So why not try something different? I think from an outside perspective, I personally think it's the correct way to go about it. So Jude Bellingham, thinking of the 10, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. On the right-hand side, again, I don't think there's going to be many questions about the rest of this team here, but Bukayo Saka out on the right-hand side, I think, again, he's just a ridiculously good player, and he's still really young. So much potential. He's had, again, a few miss-hits for Arsenal this season, a few little injuries here and there, but when he's on form, he is one of the best wingers in the world, and there's a reason why, there's talks of him potentially being one of the best wingers in the world, and potentially being one of Arsenal's greatest players come the end of his career. And he's been so solid for England. I think you look back to Euro 2020 when he missed a penalty in the final against Italy. You kind of thought, would he come back from that in terms of international football wise? I thought he was very, very good in the last World Cup out in Qatar. Unfortunately, it was an early exit against France in the quarterfinals for England there. And then the last Euros, where again we fell short to Spain in the finals, I thought he was really impressive. Again, they're currently monitoring minutes for Saka. He's on the back of a little bit of an injury, but I think if he's fully fit, even 75% fit, I think he starts now right hand side. Your other options are Madueke, maybe, but I'm not 100% sure that he is worthy of starting. I don't think he's a bad player, but I think Saka's definitely the man if he's, ready to go. And then on the other side, I do think it will be Marcus Rashford, who's had a really, really, really impressive season for Barcelona. Amazingly, hasn't been signed on a permanent, which I think is an interesting one from Barcelona's perspective. And the man who I think he'll start over, Anthony Gordon, is the replacement instead, and they've spent a lot of money on Anthony Gordon. I think close to about 80 million they've spent on Anthony Gordon, who didn't really have the most impressive season for Newcastle. Well, Newcastle didn't really have a very impressive season last year. Gordon being maybe one of the shining lights of a pretty poor season, but I think 80 million's quite excessive. When Rashford was available for 30, yeah, wages and playing time and stuff like that, bonuses and contracts, they'll all play a part. We won't know any of that. So they'll definitely play a bit of a part from Barcelona's point of view, but really good output, especially in the Champions League. So, he's been used to playing against some of the best defenders in the world in the Champions League this season on the top European stage. So I think, again, Anthony Gordon's a really, really good backup. I thought he played really well against Costa Rica the other day. So you've got someone like him to come off the bench. You look at this I don't know, this back three behind Kane here, Rashford, Bellingham and Saka. You've still got Morgan Rogers to come off the bench. You've got Gordon, Madueke, Eze. You've got quality to come off the bench still, which is so important. And they can all be interchangeable. Rashford and Saka could play other sides. You could have Rogers out wider in the middle. Bellingham, if needs to be, can play up top. So can Anthony Gordon, has done for Newcastle this season. And Rashford could also play up top. There's a lot of interchangeability with the attack, which is such a positive. Like I said, with Nico O'Reilly, having someone that can play in multiple positions is always a really positive. And I think the best striker in the world, in my opinion, Mr. Harry Kane, obviously starts for England. It'd be ridiculous not to start. And Watkins, again, ended the season in really good form for Aston Villa after having a bit of a dry spell from the new year onwards. But after that last international break, he really kicked on, scored a lot of important goals and scored again against Costa Rica. A case of being in the right place at the right time. But they're the type of goals that strikers don't really care about. They value a goal's a goal, and he'll look at that in terms of, I was there, I was in the right position, I've done my job. And Watkins does that very well, but so does Harry Kane. Scored an obscene amount of goals for Bayern Munich this season, winning them the league. I think he'll be unlucky if he doesn't win the Ballon d'Or this year. I think this tournament could play a big part in his potential Ballon d'Or victory. if England go on to the latter stages, I'd say you have to get to maybe a semi-final. Obviously, it'd be fantastic if we can win it. I think that would assure him a Ballon d'Or. But I think every single time England needs a man, Harry Kane's there. Such an important figure in the dressing room, on the field. I think he's just a different striker to anyone else in the tournament, compared to an Mbappe, compared to a Haaland. He can do so much more. I think that's what makes him really valuable. Like I said about Bellingham or Rashford or someone popping into that striker position, Kane can drop back. He can play those 40-yard passes. I mean, there's a few occasions against Costa Rica the other day where he had the ball, he dropped deep into our own half and then pinged one out to Madueke, and some fantastic balls. And there's something he can do, and little 1-2s like that, a quick switch, you can catch a defence out. I think that's how we could win a few games this tournament if we don't get found out. I think that's the big thing for England this tournament, is making sure that we don't be repetitive, because I think that's the reason we've had downfalls in the finals against the bigger, better teams, because we just get found out, unfortunately, and we can't afford for that to happen. But I think that'll be Tuchel's starting 11 for next Wednesday. Again, the only one that I think maybe I'd switch would be Ezri Konsa for John Stones. But other than that, I think 99% of people would agree that should be the starting 11. I think it's a really good starting 11. We need to get off to a good start against Croatia, and fingers crossed, football's coming home. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Come on, England!